How you doing? This is Sam Tolley with Trusting the Truth. I'm away from home. I'm out of town. So this isn't my normal backdrop and this isn't my normal setup. I'm recording this on my laptop. I need to react to Senator Schumer because they're bringing in the same dog and pony show they always bring in when we talk about voter identification. They always go for the race card. They're always trying to intimidate Black people in particular, and women, and just people in general who aren't paying attention. They like to treat people like they're children, like they can't do anything, like everything that is required of them isn't required of them all the time. So, let's dig into this, and I'm going to stop it as we go.
Schumer, this talk about election security has revived discussions of the SAVE Act, which you have said you oppose. Proponents of it say that it's, to have ID, you have to prove U.S. citizenship to be able to vote, though some of the claims they make, to be clear, are overstated. We know.
How do we know that? Just because he said we know there's not widespread election fraud. Are you kidding me? Let's not forget, in the 2020 election, they claim that Joe Biden, who never had a rally bigger than a parking lot. I remember seeing that they had circles around chairs where they had placed in parking lots for people to listen to Joe mumble. They claim that he had 81 million votes. I believe at the time, Trump had like 76 million votes. Now think about it. Generally, during an election, or shall we say generally, when an incumbent is running for re-election and they win, they get less votes than they did when they first ran. Excuse me. Trump's 76 million votes would have been more votes than not only he got when he first ran, but any president got during their first term, except for the 81 million that Joe got. 81 million votes. And people talk about, a little cold, that, and when I asked people this question, I said, was Joe Biden more popular than Barack Obama? People do not even hesitate to tell me no. But Obama never got those many votes. Let's listen on.
But polling does suggest, there's a new Pew Research poll that 95% of Republicans, but also 71% of Democrats like this idea. So why do you not?
It's Jim Crow.
There we go. Jim Crow 2.0. Always go for the racist dagger to try to, get Black people to respond, like Pavlov's dog. If you heard the story about Pavlov's dog, this guy would give a dog a treat every time, he would ring a bell. And so the dog would come and he'd give him a treat. And it got to the point where every time the dog heard the bell ring, he was looking for a treat and he'd salivate. So it got to the point where he didn't even have to give him a treat. Ring the bell and the dog is salivating. Every time Democrats are trying to pull some shenanigans, they throw the race card at Black people. But what they won't do, they love to talk about Jim Crow. They love to talk about voter suppression. They love to talk about keeping Black folks from voting, but they never mention the fact that it was all done by Democrats. It was all done by those people that Schumer is a part of. The KKK was born out of the Democrat Party. Jim Crow came from the Democrat Party. Segregation, it was all about the Democrat Party. Slavery itself was a Democrat Party institution. They separate themselves from the reality that they're the very ones that they're talking about. And that's stupid. Let's continue.
And I called it Jim Crow 2.0, and the right wing went nuts all over the internet. That's because they know it's true. What they're trying to do here is the same thing that was done in the South for decades to prevent people of color.
There you go. People of color. They just can't say black folks no more. They got to say people of color. To the Democrats, excuse me, for preventing from voting.
For instance, if you change, you're a woman who got married and changed your last name, you won't be able to show ID and you'll be discriminated.
Wait a minute. How many women in this country got married and had to change their last name? And they lived in states that required identification. You know, if you go to the store to buy alcohol, you need identification. If you go buy cigarettes, you need identification. You can't go to a bank and cash a check without identification. This idea that somehow requiring people to vote and asking them to show that they are citizens of the country, somehow it's anathema. Somehow it's racist. Matter of fact, don't white folks need identification? So why is it about color, people of color? So in other words, what Schumer is saying, that black folks is too stupid to have identification. He didn't sit over there and say, oh, you know, if they don't have identification, everybody won't be able to vote. He didn't include white folks. He's talking about people of color. So people of color are not as sophisticated, intellectually able to acquire identification, according to Senator Schumer, I surmise.
If you can't find a birth certificate or a proper ID, you'll.
What do you mean if you can't find a birth certificate or proper ID? People lose their wallets. People, sometimes the parents have the birth certificate of the child stored away someplace or lost or it got fragmented. What do? You go to the county recorder and you get a new one. You go to the DMV and get a new driver's license. You do what is required so you can have proper identification. If you lose your wallet, you're going to stop driving tomorrow? And by the way, everybody, even people of color, needs identification, a driver's license, in fact, to legally drive. And I'm sure Senator Schumer should know that.
This is vicious and nasty. And I said to.
Now, they're vicious and nasty. The Democrat Party is the one that's vicious and nasty, to imply that people of color would have a problem getting identification. They are so nasty that they denigrate, talk about the very people that they claim they're trying to help. They talk about them like they are little children and that he is their champion. He's going to make sure they don't need identification. Well, those millions of illegals that came across the border, see, they wanted them to come across and they still want them to vote. And people, let me let you understand. The more people that you have in an area, the more congressional representation you get. That's one of the benefits. So if you got millions of illegals that just move into your area, they're going to get more Congress people. That means more votes for that side, if in fact they can count those people on the census. And if no voter identification is required, these people might start voting. They made a law in New York City where they were allowing people to vote in their area, which was illegal and thrown out. But we've heard all through the country where illegals have been voting. And the Democrat Party is encouraging that activity because they don't care about the American citizens. The only thing they care about is power. And the more votes they can get their way, the more they can stay in power. I mean, just think about it. What sense does it make if you really care about the United States of America, if you really care about its citizens, that you wouldn't want its citizens to be the only people that could vote? And the only way that you can ensure that their citizens are the only people that can vote is to have voter identification. There are some countries that not only do you have voter identification, you have to give them a thumbprint because everybody's thumb or their fingers, their fingerprints are different to prove that you are a citizen. I would not even trust these machines anymore, particularly after the 2020 election when Biden got 81 million votes. Stalin said many years ago, it doesn't matter who's doing the voting or how many people vote. What matters is who's doing the counting. If you can control the process, then you can control the outcome. Because there's no way that I believe that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. I don't even think any Democrats believe that. I think that dyed in the wool Democrats didn't care because they're sold out to the Democrat Party. The truth, honesty, and integrity and obeying the Constitution only matters if it supports the Democrat Party. Let's finish this thing up.
Republican colleagues. It will not pass the Senate. You will not get a single Democratic vote in the Senate. We're not reviving Jim Crow all over the.
Okay, so you will not get a single Democrat vote. I wouldn't be surprised. That's why Trump wants to get rid of the filibuster. These people do not want voter identification. They do not want voter integrity. They do not care about the Constitution. They care about power. And let me explain something to you about power, people. People that have the power do not worry about money because money always follows the power. So if you got the power, you're going to have the money. That's why many, if not all, of these Democrat and many Republican Congress people and senators who worked all their lives in the government are multimillionaires. They didn't do it from their salary, but they're rich, many of them. It's up to the American people to be in control of the electoral process. And the only way the American people can ensure that their vote counts is by voter identification. And by the way, this nonsense about minorities and black folks, think about it. If black folks are only like 13% of the population, we've already nullified as far as voting unless we have voter identification. 13%, so what is that? 87% can outvote us. If you have a bunch of illegals voting, that further nullifies your vote. And they're packing the illegals into our communities, into the poorer communities, packing them into the schools with your children in these non-performing schools that the Democrat Party insists that your kids go to. They don't care that the teachers union is the biggest union in the nation and that the teachers union only cares about money in the teacher's coffer. Well, we got 50% or more children in the school who are not even at grade level. Yet the Democrat Party is against vouchers. They're against the ability for parents to take the tax money that they pay to put their children in a school of their choice. Now, why is that? Because they want their children to be in these schools that indoctrinate them in nonsense. But these Congress people, these senators, their children don't go to the public schools. They go to private institutions. They go to the places where they can get educated. So when they get out of school, they can take over their parents' role. While your children, the ones that are not getting educated, can get indoctrinated. You know, I saw a week ago, kids all over the nation. Well, I didn't see them all over the nation, but I saw them in my community, and I saw them on TV, and I saw them online, protesting ICE. Why? They were protesting against Immigration, Custom, and Enforcement, who's trying to get illegals out of this country that don't belong here. Illegals, many, in fact, that may be voting illegally. So these people that are here illegally, and then we're taking care of with our taxpayer money that should be going toward taking care of our own children. We got teachers in the teachers union because they don't care, because the more kids they put in the school, the more the teachers union make money. They make money by each body. So they got all these kids running around with Mexican flags and Honduran flags and all these other places talking about ICE, this and that. They're Nazis and get rid of them. What they're actually doing, they got these kids protesting against their own well-being, against their own needs and their own aspirations. They got them thinking that they're doing a good thing, but they're actually hurting themselves. This is the Democrat Party. This is what they do. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about our kids. If they did, they wouldn't have Drag Queen Story Hour. They wouldn't be advocating same-sex marriage. They would be against Johnny being Jill and child mutilation and transgenderism and all that other vile, deformed, ungodly stuff they stand for. And Schumer, all Schumer cares about is getting reelected. He doesn't care nothing about you or your children. You know, for Democrats to sit over here and argue about identification and insult the integrity of Black people and other people of color and women. Well, if you get married, you're not going to have ID. You're not going to be able to vote. It's a shame. And it's a shame that people put up with that nonsense. Well, it's time for American citizens to say no. It's time to say, we're not putting up with it. We don't believe it. We never accepted it. Everybody has the capacity and the ability to get ID. And if you don't have the money, the states will give you ID anyway. So this stuff that voter identification is racist, no, that's talk is coming from racists that want to keep you under their thumb. They want to keep you marginalized. They want to keep you thinking from a servile slave mentality. Like they're the massa, really. And if they ain't there to take care of you, you can't make it. Well, I can make it. And I have made it. And anybody with any sense to make it, and anybody with any sense will stay as far as they can away from the Democrat Party. This is Sam Tolley, and I'm out.